Page number 104, Unit 8, Ecofeminism. Unit structure 8.0 Objectives 8.1 Introduction 8.2 Definition 8.3 History of Ecofeminism 8.4 Branches of Ecofeminism 8.5 Features of Ecofeminism 8.6 Economic subordination basically means two things. Branches of Ecofeminism 8.5 Features of Ecofeminism 8.6 Economic subordination basically means two things. 8.7 Dualistic thinking in Western philosophy and culture. 8.8 Perspective of ecofeminism. 8.9 Ecofeminism and the politics of identified in the developing world. Vandana Shiva. 8.10 Spiritual dimension. 8.11 Feminist environmentalism. Bina Agarwal. 8.12 Conclusion. 8.18 Question. 8.40 Difference. 8.0 Objectives to study the concept and relevance of ecofeminism, to understand the relationship between women and environment, to study various perspectives of ecofeminism, to evaluate the contribution of Vandana Shiva and Bina Agarwal ecofeminism. 8.1 Introduction. Ecofeminism, also known as ecological feminism, is a branch of feminism which comprehends the relationship between woman and nature. The term of ecofeminism is a result of numerous feminist and environmental social movements to save nature and ecology. In the late 1970s and 1980s, it captured the attention of the masses. The term ecofeminism was first used by Francois Young in 1974. Ecofeminism relies on the basic feminist tenets of equality between genders. It also examines the effect of gender categories in order to show the ways in which social norms execute an equal domination over women and nature. 8.2 Definition. Philosophical and political theory and movement which combines ecological concepts with feminist ones regarding both as resulting from male domination of society. The movement or theory that applies from these principles and ideas to ecological issues. 8.3 History of Ecofeminism. Ecofeminism received popularity in the context of a number of agitations and protests against environmental degradation results on account of environmental disasters. The first eco-feminist conference in the USA on the ecofeminism in March 1980 witnessed the participation of a large number of women. Discussions were held as to deploy the ways in which women and environment could be united to encourage the respect for both women and environment, and also to explain how long dependence of women on environment has resulted in oppression of both women and nature. By the late 1980s, ecofeminism had grown out of this largely academic of environment and become a popular movement. Some people have called ecofeminism as a movement, whereas others have called it as a discourse movement, mostly of the white European to reclaim spiritual relationship with the earth. In the later period, ecofeminism was led by Vandana Shiva, a South Asian, and Maria Mais, a German woman's ecofeminist. The ecofeminist discourse is related to the notion of that both women and nature have been degraded, dominated, and devalued by the Western culture. Women and nature degraded, dominated by Western culture, devalued. 8.4 Branches of ecofeminism. By the late 1980s, ecofeminism had two branches. One, radical ecofeminism, to cultural ecofeminism. Radical ecofeminists believed that the dominant patriarchal ideology of the society equates nature with women in order to degrade both. It explains how the labor and resources of women and nature has been commodified by males to establish state control over them. Cultural ecofeminists promote an association between women and the environment. They argue that the woman's close association with nature because of their gender roles, example, family, nurturer, and provider of food, and their biology, example, menstruation, pregnancy, and lactation. They believe that this association makes women more sensitive to various forms of environmental degradation. They plead for a harmonious relationship between the man and the nature. However, all feminists did not agree with this division of ecofeminism. 8.5 Features of ecofeminism problems. One, women and nature share a special relationship, hence women have an important stake in ending the domination of nature and conserving the environment. There are important connections between the domination of women and exploitation of nature. See, these connections between nature and culture can be traced ideologically to the patriarchal thoughts which makes nature interior to culture. Since women are identified with nature, they are considered interior, and men identify with culture are considered superior. Given this relation, women have a special stake in ending their own subordination. Solution: this change can be brought about through a reconceptualization of the relations between women, men, and nature in non-hierarchical ways and develop an egalitarian equal approach. Ecofeminism draws connection between the oppression of women and the destruction of nature, and trace both historically to the emergence of Western patriarchal science in the 17th century. Ecofeminism is about connectedness and wholeness of theory and practice. It asserts the special strength and integrity of everything living thing. Ecofeminism is a woman-identified movement. This movement sees the destruction of the earth being as feminists concerned to be an eco-feminist is basically to be a feminist and ecologist at the same time. Ecological feminism has a very important role to play because of the context of economic globalization. Let's us check on define ecofeminism. Let's get branches and futures. 8.6 Economic subordination basically means two things. One, women have been subordinated because they have been associated with household and domestic work. Two, economic growth as defined as that which takes place outside the household throughout history and in most societies even today. Women's housework is treated as non-work. The defining of women's housework as no work is related to universalization of modern economics. The definition of measuring GNP is based on treating certain work as producing and certain activities as non-productive. Basically says if you are working in the household then you are not producing. If you are consuming what you are producing, you are not producing. This not only wipes out women's workout but also wipes out self-reliant, sustainable activity, economic globalization. Therefore, since if you are producing for your own consumption as a country, you are not producing unless you are the trading and then you are contributing to growth. 8.7 Dualistic thinking in Western philosophy and culture. The dualistic thinking that has shaped so much of the Eurocentric world view is perhaps the central concern of ecofeminist philosophical and political analysis. The Eurocentric notion is that masculine is associated with rationality, spirit, culture, autonomy, assertiveness, and the public sphere, while the feminine is associated with motion, body, nature, connectedness, respectively, and private sphere. Masculine is considered to be superior to that is associated with the feminine. The latter exists in the service of the former. The relationship between the two is inherently agonistic strain. Eight perspectives on ecofeminism. Different ecofeminists have deployed different ways of analyzing the relationship between woman and nature, its exploitation, and the means to overcome this oppression. The devaluation of nature carries along with it a devaluation of subsistence living. This is intrinsically linked to a woman and their work and productivity. Similarly, one can draw a parallel between the violence against nature and violence against women. The relationship between woman and environment is an ongoing area of inquiry, intervention, and debate summarized in two differing points of view put forward by two well-known women, Vandana Shiva, an ecofeminist, and Veena Gowal, a feminist ecologist. Let us check on what is meant by economic subordination. To elaborate on dualistic thinking in Western philosophy and culture. We elaborate on various perspectives on ecofeminism. 8.9 Ecofeminism and the Politics of Identity in the Developing World. Vandana Shiva. There has been reluctance to discuss the effects of modern technologies on the working lives of women, even among activists, the scholar in developing world. The inappropriateness of modern Western technologies for the third world countries is powerfully urged by ecofeminists such as Vandana Shiva. Vandana Shiva, along with Mariam, gave us a vision of new technology is conceptualized from a perspective of subsistence. This perspective means not only the change in the various subject and socio-economic division of labor, but also is a process of substituting money or commodity relationship by principles such as reciprocity, sharing, caring, and respect for the individual. Hence, the subsistence perspective can be realized only within a nature of relatively stable human relations. Women in the third world welcome modernization and as long as they can have some say in the manner in which technology which is affecting the quality of their working and their family life is adopted. Women usually have significant powers and are usually by society confined by tradition. According to Shiva, women's liberation is possible only if we safeguard all the life of all the on the planet Earth from patriarchy and capitalism. Shiva and other ecofeminists are explicitly anti-war and anti-capitalist because both war and capitalism are seen as patriarchal structures. For majority of the world, deforestation of Himalaya and patenting of seeds and tree may not be related to feminism for the women of the area. Environment is the place where they live and it encompasses everything that affects their lives. The dualistic world view prevailed in society divides nature into opposing parts, whereby humans are perceived and detached to nature. The technology is considered superior to indigenous knowledge meant to human and human to animals, etc. The Shiva promotes a world view based on partnership and cooperation. So, a eco-feminist perspective makes no distinction between basic needs, food, clothing, shelter, and higher needs, freedom, and knowledge. 8.10 Spiritual dimension. In addition of the philosophical and political aspect, ecofeminism contains a spiritual dimension. Ecofeminists are situated in all the major religions and most of them see a good reason for human imagery in reference to the divine. Ecofeminists consider nature as a feminine principle Prakriti, which is characterized by creativity, activity, productivity, continuity between human and nature, sanctity of life in nature, connectedness and interrelation of all beings, including human. The term terra mater, earth as a symbol of Greek mother, is often used to justify nature's feminine qualities. Let us examine in detail views of Vandana Shiva on ecofeminism. 8.11 Feminist Environmentalism Bina Agrawal is critical of Shiva, saying that it is a very unitary view of third world for the predominantly Hindu conception and preserving nature as related to the feminine principle of nurturing and creativity is alien to women for some other religions. She feels ignores the fact that women, like men, are socially structured and that their responses to nature is a result of the specific socialization. Agarwal would argue for feminist environmentalism as opposed to ecofeminism. She focuses on the material reasons for the connection between poor peasants and tribal women with nature. She feels that because women have historically been associated with the responsibility for cultivation, collecting fuel and fodder in several hill and tribal communities, they seem to have a closer link to nature. Thus, the privatization of rural resources and destruction of the environment affect women differently depending on their class, caste, ethnic, and economic positions. Binagar World's view on ecofeminism takes away the suggestion that the woman nature is naturally and biologically ordained or that ecological sensibility is an essentially feminine principle. The view calls for a specific choice of an environmental sensitive economic society and culture. It says that the fact that women, especially poor women, are more likely to accept such a view is because of their historical and social conditioning. It also suggests that one does not have to accept the essentially subjugated position that have had to suffer in exchange for such closeness to nature. While critics have come from various fields, Vinagarwal supports the idea of feminist environmentalism instead of ecofeminism. She feels that the ideological spiritual explanation of woman is not a homogeneous category and differs in caste, class, race, and sanctity. Ecofeminism is trying to essentialize the relationship as unchangeable and irreducible. Also, the Hindu religious explanation of Prakriti as the feminine quality is not applicable to other just belief. Feminist environmentalism, on the other hand, tries to look into economic, political, and social factors contributing to economic degradable and role of women played in combating fighting them. Let's check one right note on feminist environmentalism of Agrawal 8.12. Conclusion. In summary, ecofeminism is a movement that focuses the attention and historical linkage between disintegration of nature and female seeks to shed light on what both Agarwal and Shiva agree on is on that environmental concerns are not elitist but are central to struggles for poor peoples, especially women, for survival and for living spaces. 8.13 questions 1. What is meant by ecofeminism? Discuss its significance in contemporary society. 2. Define ecofeminism. Elaborate on various perspectives on it. 3. Examine in detail the contribution of Vandana Shiva to ecofeminism. 4. Briefly explain the feminist environmentalism propagated by Bina Agarwal. 8.14 References http://www.doccenter.net /docsweb /gender /chapters /chapter 11 htm Calliope J. Hertz Insights, Berkeley, University of California Press, 1994. Democracy Now! An Hour with Vandana Shiva, 27 November 2003. http www.democracynow.org 2003 11:27 An Hour with Vandana Shiva, Indian. Walden Maradona, WS450, Ecofeminism Class Notes, Oregon State University, 2009. Miss Maria and Vandana Shiva, Ecofeminism, Halifax, Parenthood, 1993. Navadani, http://www.navadanya.org. The Complete Marcus Who or Biographies. Marcus Who LLC, 2008. LexisNexis, 18 January 2009. http www.lexisnexis.com.proxy.library. Oregon State Edu/US/ in academic /research /platform.do. Shiva Vandana helped down close to home reconnect ecology, health and development worldwide. Philadelphia, City Publishers, 1994. Shiva Vandana Staying Alive, Women, Ecology and Development, London. Side books, State Green Internet. https www.def/dev/2012/research/cassie/11 Rao Ecofeminism PDF. Some at the Crossroads in India, a review by Manisha Rao.